first started out kind of like big, large scale global issue, but then after talking to this cohort, I realized like we can bring it back down to Tucson. We can work with issues that are here. So it ended up going with something like clean our washes. And you can see, I showed my kids this map of all the washes in Pima County. And we looked at the fact that they are all connected. Okay, no matter what part of town you are, somehow the washes in our neighborhoods all lead into the big Santa Cruz. So it's a citywide issue. Here was kind of our question and our problem. The problem was that we have so much trash that ends up in our city's waterways. Okay, and every year when we get those big rainfalls, especially in after monsoon, that August, September, those big rainstorms, they carry all of the trash that's on the streets into the washes. Our challenge with our project was to hopefully design and create sort of a prototype. And I use that word prototype because I didn't want them to like get stuck on like, has to be this device. It could be anything that's going to solve our problem, to help clean up our washes as they run, and to maybe even keep the trash from entering the washes in the first place. The water, the challenge was kind of going off of all of the water entities. They have this clean water starts with me slogan, and that we took that idea and we were trying to apply it. So it starts with them even just managing their own trash, but then what can we do to maybe help prevent the trash from getting there in the first place? Some of the standards that we were working on with our projects echo what all the other teachers were sort of doing. We're all working with this idea of like the ecosystems and human impact and how we can use that evidence to, talk about it and come up with solutions. And then we're also looking at being able to take information about how communities use science, so how we could use science here in our community to solve a problem. And yes, protect Earth's resources, but I think when you say it like that, they think so big, like, oh, we have to protect the rainforest, but it's like, yes, we do, but we also need to protect our resources and environment here in Tucson first. This is where we're at, so what can we do here? For kind of the inquiry, we had been studying ecology with a focus on ecosystems and human impacts. And my kids were really familiar with like those big trendy, kind of the big ones, like I have here, Save the Turtles, which is all still very important, and the don't use plastic straws. They all kind of went there first. And it's like, yes, that's all very good. And we can definitely do use less plastic or don't use straws, but they weren't really familiar with things that we are dealing with here in Tucson. So we talked about that trash heap in the oceans. That was also kind of one that they had heard before and they knew about. And so we tried to kind of bring it back that yes, all those waterways are connected, even here in Tucson, and eventually they do make their way to that ocean. So like I said, even our trash here in Tucson will make it somewhere if we're not responsible with it. Okay. Our project is multidisciplinary. It does, obviously there's science behind it, but then as they were designing, there is some art and writing. I did show them this article it's a little dated, it's from 2019, but it talked about there's a huge trash heap in one of our main washes, and there's a video from it. So we talked about, this is a little far away from us. It's at, Oracle, and we are down by the Air Force Base, but let's see, there was a video. There it is. So we looked at this to kind of show them that there is all this trash ending up in the river. And once that we get that big rain and those washes flow, all this trash is going to be carried off further down and end up somewhere else. And we talked about, maybe like going into one of our neighborhood washes and kind of walking it. But that's not the safest option for some of my kids. So that's why I kind of opted just to show them that video. I mean, even if you do walk any of the washes, we take our dog and our son out all the time. And in some of our washes, there's always broken glass. There's clothing pieces, there's all kinds of random trash that end up in the waterways. So trying to come up with a solution for that. Part of the design process, they needed to create and plan an outline for which problem they were going to focus on. So were they going to focus on the trash before it gets to the washes? Were they going to focus on the trash that was floating on top as the washes were flowing, or maybe the trash that sinks to the bottom? They had to kind of pick what problem they wanted to deal with or tackle. They needed to also design their prototype, whatever it was going to be, on paper. They needed to kind of make a plan, list their materials, and then get it approved so that they could start building. They are super creative, and they did have these really big ideas, and I felt a little bit guilty of like trying to rein them in a little bit because I wanted it to be doable. But there are going to be points of reflection during the build. So as they were designing and building, what's working? Maybe we had this idea on paper, it looked really good, but now that we're actually trying to build it, it's not working out. What might they have to change, that sort of thing. At the end, I'm going to have my groups evaluate themselves and their group members just to kind of see how well did I work with my group, how well did they work with me, sort of thing. That way, I didn't want it to be like one person doing all the work. That way there was some sort of accountability throughout. For the public product, my hopes for the next few weeks are that the students are going to have their prototype built, and that we're going to be able to showcase their builds to other classes at school. Part of the project was also to choose a presentation option, so they could either make a brochure about their device and what it's going to do and kind of the problem, maybe create a video introducing their prototype and explaining its features, or creating an ad. In my mind, we were also going to, if they made any of those products, we could distribute them in our neighborhood or through our school's social media, anything that would be able to bring awareness to the issue. For testing, my idea was to bring in a baby pool and fill it with water, and we could fill it with different things that were floating, things that sink to the bottom, and that way they could kind of test their design on water if that's what their prototype was designed to do. But that's kind of the idea. Some of the things that I learned here is that my students are extremely creative and that they're so much smarter than they think they are when it comes to a creative problem, so like problem solving. And I brought it back down to Tucson again after talking to our group, just because I don't want them to become discouraged by the global problem. It's so big and it seems like it's impossible to deal with, but then helping them realize that we can do something here in Tucson that will, eventually have kind of like a chain reaction, and we can make a difference here in our hometown because they deserve a clean and healthy city. And so does Tucson. Tucson deserves to be kept beautiful and healthy. So that was kind of my idea. This year has been a little bit harder to do projects because I'm normally used to seeing my kids 5 days a week for an hour. Now I get them 2 days a week for 50 minutes. And so the time goes by really quickly and it's broken up so much. So time has definitely been a challenge this year. So we're not as far as I thought we would be. I don't have as much to show for my idea right now at this point, just because of the current climate of being able to having to teach online and having them only a limited amount of time is really hard. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a final product done. But that's it.